Well, I'll say the interesting thing is, we're called Class A trustees, but we're neither alcoholic nor anonymous. So they had to give us an A. I don't know why else they call us Class A's because we don't have either of these.
Amateurs.
That's what we call them.
I heard it through the grapevine. Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine half-hour variety hour featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Sam, an alcoholic in Palm Springs, California.
And I'm Alice, an alcoholic in Oakland, California.
Alice, hey! It's the first of the month, and you know what that means?
What's it mean?
The new Grapevine is here! Woohoo!
And the October issue is titled Operation Cooperation.
And this month, of all things, we received a message on cassette tape from our editor, Chris. I just happen to have an old cassette tape player around here somewhere. Oh, man. I hope this thing still works. I'll just load the tape here and...
Your mission, Sam and Alice, should you choose to accept it, is to reach out to doctors, lawyers, judges, clergy, parole officers, and therapists to inform them about AA and how we can help problem drinkers turn their lives around. As usual, when you and your fellow AAs reach out and help others, you help defend yourself against that first drink. And for us, to drink is to die. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck, Sam and Alice.
So dramatic. He could have just sent an email.
And worse than that, he blew up your antique cassette player.
I know, but fortunately, they're easy to find in Palm Springs. There's lots of estate sales. Our founder, Bill W., said ministers and doctors are competent, and you can learn much from them if you wish. So cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim.
Alcoholics Anonymous uses lots of jargon.
GSR.
Which stands for General Service Representative.
And GSO.
That is the General Service Office.
ODAT.
That is one day at a time. I don't know that that's as common, but I certainly hear it a lot.
And then there's CPC.
Cooperation with the professional community. What is that?
Our editor writes, our fellowship's hardworking committees help people in the professional community learn about AA to better help problem drinkers get to AA and turn their lives around. This month's special section features stories by AA members rolling up their sleeves and getting involved in CPC service.
In the story, Getting the Word Out, a woman shares how she and another AA put together CPC workshops. And in Showing What We Do, a member talks about how he became his group's CPC rep.
A judge and Class A trustee shares about the importance of CPC work in cooperating with the courts.
And a GSO staff member on the CPC desk writes how grateful he was that a counselor knew how to talk to him about AA when he wanted to stop drinking, in his story, Saying the Right Words.
In the step story, Clearing the Air, a dad well into sobriety writes, I can't begin to count the number of times I breezed through the Serenity Prayer, essentially nodding at the idea of acceptance and finding comfort in taking a few seconds to not think about whatever the day had presented. My wife telling the same story for the 10th time? Grant me serenity. The credit card company putting me on hold for 50 minutes? Grant me the serenity. However, I found myself scurrying away from the prayer's second request to be provided with courage. He goes on to embrace the 10th step and come clean and mend his relationship with his daughter.
Sam, that's really beautiful. And it reminds me that the Serenity Prayer can become rote and we can just go through it when really it's an opportunity to pause, reflect, and be brought back to center.
There you go.
So, Sam, who's our guest today?
Alice, today's guest is the author of Courts on page 21 of the October 2024 issue. We welcome Kerry Meyer from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Whoa, wait a minute. You just used Kerry's last name, and you know we don't do that, Sam.
Well, you're right that we AA members don't do that. However, Kerry is a Class A non-alcoholic trustee on the General Service Board of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm sure we'll learn more about that when we chat with her.
But first, the news.
Did
The 2025 General Service Conference will hold elections for 2 regional trustees, Southeast U.S. and East Central U.S., and 1 Class B, that means alcoholic, trustee at large for the U.S. As soon as area elections occur, delegates from the U.S. areas are asked to email the name and contact information of their candidates to Alcoholics Anonymous World Service, AAWS. If you're interested in serving AA in one of these positions, please reach out to your delegate and start that conversation.
The first international online intergroup of Alcoholics Anonymous online convention occurs over 3 days in late October 2024. Each day, there is a 30-minute opening with 4 streams of meetings for 6 hours and a 30-minute closing. All time zones and a multitude of groups from countries all over the world are participating. You can register by going to aa-intergroup.org/convention 2024. Our 12 Steps is a brand new collection of stories from AA members about working the program's 12 Steps of Recovery. Each chapter illuminates a different step through the experiences of a wide variety of AA members. This volume features all new, up-to-date stories from the pages of Grapevine, the International Journal of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is great for sponsees and step meetings, and it's only $13.99 at aagrapevine.org/books.
Hello, my name is Kerry Meyer. I'm a Class A trustee of the General Service Board of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm also a trial court judge in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Kerry, thank you so much for joining us. What a treat to get to chat with you today.
Not only are you a Class A trustee, you wrote into the Grapevine. You have a story published in the Grapevine.
That's right. The reason why I have a story in the Grapevine this month is because asked to write a story by the senior editor of the Grapevine after he heard my story at the January board weekend.
And what is it that he heard? What'd you do?
I just told my story about how I became involved with AA. You know, there's only 7 of us at a time that are on the board who are not alcoholics. We serve for 6 years, so there's just not that many people who are not members of the fellowship who are on the General Service Board of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was the first person. I had not heard another Class A tell his or her story at a board weekend. We always have AA meetings. We have other meetings, general sharing, 1728 meetings. We always have meetings, but I hadn't heard a Class A just tell her story of how she got involved with the fellowship.
What was the beginning of that? How did you become aware of Alcoholics Anonymous?
My intersection with AA is very much through my job. I have certainly worked with people who suffer from addiction for my entire career, even before I became a judge. I was a prosecutor of felony criminal cases. Definitely saw the intersection of addiction and the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Once I became a judge, I went to a lot of training on addiction, heard from many people who, suffer from it, people who are in sobriety and those who are actually in recovery. I became very involved with the fellowship through the volunteers in my DWI court when I was the presiding judge of DWI court in Minneapolis. Had this incredible core group of volunteers who helped me to help the still suffering alcoholics who were in the court program to achieve recovery and sobriety.
Now, is that a typical thing for someone who's entering into the justice system to become informed about addiction?
It's certainly something that I make sure that the new judges coming in to our district learn about, because there's so much intersection, as I said, between addiction and every part of being a judge, whether it's family court or juvenile court, criminal court. We just see so many people who are suffering in their addiction.
Yeah. Many people who are suffering or recovered Think of the courts and certainly think of judges as sort of the other side, like those people. I've got to go to court. They're going to get me. And we don't appreciate judges sit there and see case after case after case. And even if we don't know we're suffering, they can see that we are suffering. Like, how did you get out of the court system to Alcoholics Anonymous? I mean, we're different systems.
Right. The volunteers in my court program also introduced me to CPC work. They invited me to attend CPC events local, and we had a local CPC event where the General Service Board chair at the time, Terry Bedian, came and presented. And then they started to have me speak at these events to other professionals and eventually to the fellowship themselves, right? The people who wanted to volunteer or the people they wanted to get involved in service. At my local level, district, area, I learned what all those things were because, of course, that's not intuitive. And then I actually was a speaker at the International Convention in Atlanta, which was an incredible honor. At that point, I started to apply for a trustee position, passed over a couple of times because, as with everyone, all in God's time, it was truly not meant to be. Back in 2015, 16, I took a break from applying because my job got super busy, which of course my higher power knew was going to happen. And that's part of why I wasn't on the board at that time. Came back to it, and I'm now in my third year as a trustee.
Is there a personal nature to your experience with Alcoholics Anonymous?
It all becomes personal, right? When people come into DWI court, the whole team wants to see them succeed. I will say especially the judge wants to see them succeed because it's such a different way to do probation and sort of a last chance before prison to deal with the addiction that's leading to the offense. And so it became personal for me that each of my participants would do the best they could. And I know from my years of being a judge that what works is AA, that having the fellowship. I have a friend who says the opposite of addiction is community. And is there any better community than the fellowship of AA? I haven't found it. So this fellowship really leads to not just the white knuckling sobriety, but the actual recovery and finding joy, right? Happy, joyous, and free. And so it became personal for me with the individuals that I was working with. And now, of course, all the people that I get to meet in the fellowship.
There's a guy that you may know, Brian Stevenson, and he says the opposite of poverty isn't wealth, it's justice. And if you are compassionate, people who come before the court get to be seen not as their mistake, but as a person who's in need of community, a person that's in need of support. Like, on behalf of all of the people who have ever been before you, thank you.
Thank you, Alice.
Kerry, do you have experience with the 12 steps?
Well, I have done them twice now, and I certainly live by that because I promised to be a trustee of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that is part of my obligation under the bylaws. In my community, one of my volunteers runs a program called Study and Action, which is to study the first 164 pages and take the action as you walk through it. I did the program once with him very early after becoming named the new DWI court judge. And then I did it again right as the pandemic hit with another man in our community who does the 12 steps.
Is there anything in that working of the 12 steps that you found a moment that's like, wasn't expecting that?
So, like all intellectual people, I thought I did the fourth step perfectly, right? And so as I did the fifth step with my dear friend, and her first response was, so you have this thing that she named at the top of your list, right? What else is there? And I'm like, I don't have that on my list. She's like, what else do you have? And I'm like, oh, ding, 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 right? You all are really good at taking other people's inventory of finding my biggest fear that I had not included in my own inventory. But she was absolutely right? That needed to be at the top of the inventory. So that, and then the 9th step with my grandma, just really powerful, important, and got it done before she passed, which I'm not sure I would have done if I hadn't done the steps so intentionally and thoroughly.
Yep. There are a couple places in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous that make clear that the thing that we suffer from isn't just because we're alcoholics, it's because we're human, right? And to hear you, not as an Al-Anon, but as just a regular person out in the world that sees our way of life and is practicing our way of life, it is proof that this is helpful for everybody. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. It's absolutely true, right? When you read the 12 steps, and the original 12 steps are in Alcoholics Anonymous, the word alcohol appears one time and it's in step one.
Yep.
That's the reason why over 100 other organizations have adopted the 12 steps, and it works so well to overcoming so many different things. It is a way of life.
Is there anything that you want to share about how this has changed your life from a non-alcoholic perspective?
Well, being involved in AA has definitely changed my life, especially since becoming a trustee. I've had the opportunity to meet people from all over the US and Canada. I've had the opportunity to be with people who are so full of gratitude, who understand, the time commitment that we make to the fellowship, even though it's not technically saving our lives. But being able to see all the lives that it is saving is certainly life-changing. All of the trustees are volunteers. We certainly aren't monetarily compensated for our time, but being able to see the life-saving work with so many different people who are at different places of their sobriety journey has really been a blessing.
What kind of work are you doing? What's the workload? I imagine there's no phoning it in for a couple hours a month type of thing here.
Oh, the trustees are very busy. The A's and the B's are very busy, although we have slightly different jobs. Aside from being at the board weekends, and those weekends are long. It's not a Saturday and a Sunday, it's a Thursday through Monday. In other words, all my vacation time is given to AA.
Thank you.
For 6 years.
For 6 years. It is what I signed up for. We also attend forums. The A's are on a rotation except our treasurer. So Kevin, our treasurer, is also a Class A trustee. The treasurer is always a Class A. He goes to every forum. The other 6 of us rotate forums.
And these are the regional forums, the sharing sessions that are held around US and Canada?
Yes, exactly. So we go to the regional forums. We also are generally available for public and internal AA events. For example, recently, another Class A and I went with the CPC desk office worker who also has an article in this month's Grapevine. We went with him to Nashville and we presented at a national corrections conference, but not an AA corrections conference, a national for professionals who work in corrections.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a presentation on AA. And Andy and I were able to stand up and use our full name and tell our story, our professional and our personal work as trustees to professionals. Michael joined us, but of course he didn't use his last name. And we're just able to be more public as A's than the Class B trustees. But then the regional trustees have a totally different job, which is to report back to all of the delegates for the conference after every time that the trustees board gets together, and they keep the delegates up to speed. And then we have our general service trustees who have the double duty of being on the affiliate boards as well as on the general service board.
And real quickly, there's actually 3 boards. There's the General Service Board, which is the overarching one. And then we have the affiliate boards, the AA World Services Board and the Grapevine Board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So in your travels, is there a magical moment that comes to mind?
I went to Eastern Pennsylvania Service Assembly last year, and I had a man approach me who had been, nudged by a judge into the program. And he had not had an opportunity to go back to that judge, but just was so grateful. And, the hugging and the tearful moment that came with that, him telling me that story was, it makes the time worthwhile to see how well the two systems can work together and the other side of the story.
Which judges often don't get to see.
That's right. That's part of what makes DWI courts magical is you're working with people as they move from that sentence, right? Here's what a judge normally says. Hey, you're guilty because you said you were guilty. You're going to be on probation for 3 years. You need to not drink and you need to not commit any crimes. Good luck with that. And then we don't see them again unless they mess up. But with DWI court, they come in and they come back every single week and see you. And then as you see that they're doing better, they come back every other week. And then they come once a month until you're sure that they can just do this on their own, right? And so we get to see them through the struggles, but also through the really good stuff. We get to affirm great choices as soon as they're made. We get to address missteps as soon as they're made and really be part of the journey. And that's really unique for judges. We just don't get to see it in other parts of our work.
What a fantastic opportunity for a relationship of sorts gets built over those check-ins. Wow.
Yep, it is a relationship. I also tell my people who were in court with me that when they were doing their steps, when I'd ask them, what step are you on? Oh, I'm kind of stuck. I'm doing my 4th step. I'm like, that's great. And if I'm not at the top of your resentment inventory, you're not doing it right. So,
right. Right. I'm not in column 1.
It's a really different way to do the work of being a judge, but it's also one of the most rewarding that we can have.
How do you share with people, hey, this is worthwhile?
Because it works. It is the one thing we see that works. It reduces repeat drunk driving, right? The people who come to DWI court aren't the first timers. They're the 3rd or 4th timers. They're people who really are facing going to prison in the future if they continue their lifestyle. And so being able to see the change and the growth and the families rebuilt. So that's what I tell them, right? This is a place where we actually have some hope. It's not every day in court that you see hope.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And drunk driving has gotten them in there. So when someone is recovered from alcoholism by going through this process, that's also taking a drunk driver from the streets. That's protecting our communities and people that we may never know.
Yeah, you don't just rebuild lives, we don't just rebuild lives and families and careers, but we save the lives of people that will never come to court, that will not be hit by that driver.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is so much what I think Alcoholics Anonymous service is about. A lot of times the work that we do in Alcoholics Anonymous is for the people that we'll never meet, and particularly as a trustee, right?
My favorite is the trustees who talk about their grandkids. Well, we're going to need this program for her, right? Like, you just know which kids are most likely to develop. To go to the bylaws, our statement of purpose talks about our job as trustees is to maintain services for those who should be seeking the 12 steps. I see a lot of people who should be seeking AA in my day job, and I still do a lot of don't drink, stay out of trouble. Good luck with that in my day job. But I know that AA is there. Stop by sometime. I know there'll be a meeting because I can't order meetings per se, but I can certainly suggest to people where they could find some support.
I thought you could order meetings.
I can order sober support. I cannot order per se AA. People have court cards, and I know there's some resentment about court cards. And so I just want to ask people to think about the person who walks into the meeting who has a court card and asks you to sign it. Please see that as an opportunity, because that person didn't have to walk in the meeting to get their card signed. Take the card, have them have a seat, and give it back to them at the end of the meeting when you invite them to the meeting after the meeting. Because they could have had the guy sitting next to them at the bar. They could have had their kid. They could have signed it themselves, but they didn't. They came to a meeting, and please see that as an opportunity to help someone who's asking for help.
Thank you so much for saying that. Give them their card back at the end of the meeting when you're inviting them to the meeting after the meeting. We just got some direction from the judge here, folks. But seriously, yes, going to a meeting is absolutely crucial in my recovery. I go to meetings regularly, but I get to know alcoholics at the meeting after the meeting and the meeting before the meeting.
That's right. Even if it wasn't the right meeting for that person, the meeting after the meeting is always the right meeting, because it is where you get to see people just being people, right?
Yeah.
Humans Anonymous. There we go.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you and your friends use the Grapevine app? It's a portal into the world of the grapevine. The app is provided at no cost, but you get the most out of it by subscribing today.
App development is all about adding features and squashing bugs. If you haven't opened the app in a while or you uninstalled it, check it out again. Subscribing to the app supports everything we do.
We provide the podcast, the YouTube channel, our Instagram account, both the Grapevine magazine and Lavinia, and all the Grapevine books and literature. The app is free to download in your phone's app store and has great content and features provided at no cost to you, like the August 10th daily quote from Bill W.
Concerning any given service, we pose but one question. Is this service really needed? If it is, then maintain it we must, or fail in our mission to those who seek AA.
If you want to help us reach out to other alcoholics, subscribe for $2.99 a month. You'll support all things Grapevine, including this podcast.
Congratulations, little Grapevine app. Only $2.99 a month.
I'm at the very wit's end. Cuckoo. A doctor, a teacher, and a recovering alcoholic all die and go to an orientation in heaven where they are asked, "What would you like to hear people saying about you as they pass by your casket?" The doctor answers,
I'd like to hear them say I was a great doctor and a great family man.
The teacher says,
I'd like to hear them say I was a wonderful teacher who made a huge difference with our children of tomorrow.
The recovering alcoholic says,
I'd like to hear them say, look, he's moving. It's really not that funny.
Please listen closely as our options have changed.
Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit aa.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.
"That was freaking adequate."
Put that in!